Welcome, today I'm going to show you how to model Darth Vader's lightsaber in Blender. We are going to use a non-destructive workflow, and we'll add shading, lighting, and small details. First we are going to select the cube in the light and delete. Now we are going to edit mode, preferences, add-ons, search up images as planes, and make sure that that's ticked on. Now we are going to Shift A, images as planes, and use the image in the description. We're going into viewport shading, rotate this on the x-axis by 90 degrees, press 1 on the number pad, rotate 180 degrees on the Z, tab into edit mode, Ctrl R, press 3 and delete faces by pressing X. I'm going to move this into the middle. Now I'm going to Shift A, Mesh, Cylinder. I'm going to make sure that the cylinder has 64 vertices. Scale it down. Shade Smooth, Normals tab, and Auto Smooth. Going to scale it down even more. Bring it up. Tab into edit mode, press 3, select the face, G, Z, up a bit. Same with the bottom face. Bring that down. Selecting the bottom face, I'm going to hit E to extrude. And bring that down. This is going to be our handle. And same with the top face. E to extrude, Z, bring that up. Extrude again. Press 3, hold Alt, left click on the faces. Press E, right click, and S. Shift Z to scale on everything but the Z axis, and bring that up. Alt select the middle, E, right click, S, Shift Z, bring that out. Now I'm going to Shift A, add a cube, scale that down, scale it down even more, bring it down. These are going to be our rubber grips for our lightsaber hand. Scale that on the Z axis by pressing S and then Z. Scale a bit more. Bring that down. I'm going to bring it out on the Y axis by hitting GY. Scale it a bit more on the X axis. Ctrl A and scale to apply the scale. This will make sure that nothing weird happens. Ctrl R to add a loop cut, bring that out a bit. 2 to select the edges. Press S and Z to bring it down. Press 1 and do that again. Now I'm going to add a bevel modifier to make it smoother. I'm going to up the segments and the amount. I'm going to up the segments to maybe something like 10. Change the width type to width. I'm going to shade smooth, auto smooth. I'm going to tab into edit mode. Ctrl R to add a loop cut to make the edges clearer. Going to do this again. Now we have our rubber grip. In solid view mode, I'm going to change this to matte cap. I'm going to turn on backface culling and cavity. This will make the edges clearer and easier for us to model. Going to tab into edit mode, press 3 to select the top face, Shift S, cursor to selected. Now we're going to add a cylinder, This will be the top piece for our ignition. Bring this up. We're going to go up to the snap, change that to vertex, press G, Z and Control. Hovering over a vertex will snap it down. Now our cylinder will sit flush with the lightsaber base. Going to shade smooth again. I'm going to duplicate the grips all the way around. Now we have grips all the way around our lightsaber. We're going to model the blade emitter into place, scale that out, using Shift Z to scale on everything but the Z, G to bring it up, going to press 1 to go into vertex mode, wireframe mode, press B to box select, X delete vertices. Oh, we forgot to delete the back vertices. I must have switched off X-ray mode. B select vertices, making sure that X-ray is on, pressing G, bring that down, same with the other vertices, modeling that into place. I'm going to select these two vertices, bring them up. Now pressing 2, selecting these two edges, press E to extrude, selecting vertices again, bringing that down. Making sure the X-ray is on. Pressing E on the edges again. Press 2 for edges. E, 1 for vertices, bring that down. Now we have our blade emitter. Pressing 2, Alt and selecting, and also selecting these bottom pieces here. If we hit Control plus to select more, and if we hit P and by selection, now it's its own separate object. We're going to add a solidify modifier. This will give it some thickness. Upping that to 0.04. Now we are going to make the ring at the bottom, adding a cylinder, scaling that down, making sure that it's on 64 vertices. Scale it down a bit more. Going to scale on the Z axis to make it thinner, bring it up a bit. I'm going to select the base mesh as well by hitting Shift and select. Now I'm going to Control and select the vertice to make sure that it's sitting flush, shading smooth, normal, auto smooth. Tabbing into edit mode, going to add a cube, making sure that it's part of the mesh. Also applying our scale to make sure that our normals stay in place. Scale down the cube. Bring that out on the x-axis. Scale it down more, bring it up. Bringing it in. Scale it on the y-axis a bit. We can select the base mesh. First, let's bring it up, Z-axis, make sure that it's flush, hitting Control. Select the bottom, bring that down. Now let's bring this out on the X-axis. There we go. Now we're going to duplicate that on the other side, pressing L to select it. Now we're going to add a torus, make sure that its minor radius is down. To about 0.1. Rotate that on the x-axis, scale that down a bit. fit the ring in the picture. Going to edit mode, X-ray mode, B to box select, and selecting the top, we're going to delete those faces. Bring that up a bit. We're also going to scale that in on the y-axis. There we go. And now let's sort out our bevel modifier. Deleting any modifiers that we have on the ring and applying on the other mesh. Now Ctrl J to join those mesh. Making sure that we shade smooth. That's our ring done. Applying the scale to our base and adding a cube, scaling that down, bringing that out on the X. Scale that down a bit more on the X axis. Let's select that face, bring it in, and press O to select the mesh and bring that down. Select the bottom face, bring it down to fit, and let's L to select and scale on the Y axis. Now let's select these edges and bring them in. Whoops, forgot to select the other side. So right click to cancel that, select the other edge, and now let's bring them in on the X axis. Now let's 3 to select the face, press I to inset. Actually, let's right click and do it again. Now we can see. There we go. Now let's E to extrude, and I'm going to press 2 to edge select and select this bottom one and bring that in a bit. Going to add a bevel modifier. Bring that up a bit. Apply that, shade smooth, auto smooth, and we might as well Ctrl J that to the original mesh. Now let's add a cylinder. We're going to add some details now, auto smooth. Bring that up a bit to the side. First let's select the top and bottom faces. Shift to select them both, I to inset. Let's press F3 and let's type in bridge edge loops. This will make a hole through the middle. Let's select it all and scale on the Z axis. Let's rotate on the Y axis by 90 degrees. Press 1 on the number pad and move that into place. Let's bring this in a bit. You can add as many of these as you want. I'm just going to quickly make this for the sake of the tutorial. You can spend more time on it, making it look better. Bring that in. That's all I'm going to do for now. Now I'm going to do these length adjusts. So I'm going to add in a cylinder, scale that down, make sure to smooth, auto smooth. There's 2 to select edges, Alt to select the bottom, scale to bring that out. Let's select the top face, pressing 3, I to inset. Let's bring this out a bit, scale that down a bit more. E to extrude that out. And let's E to extrude again. Now let's Alt select these faces. Let's press E, let's right click to cancel, and S, Shift X this time. Now let's press I and I again to inset on individual origins. Now we can press E, right click, S, Shift X. This will add a grip to our length adjusts. Control B to add a bevel. Let's bring that in a bit, not too much, that should do. Let's shade smooth, scale that down and move it into position. Rotate it on the Y, 90 degrees. Minus 90, scale that down. And bring that into the assigned place. Move it a bit and scale it up. Let's duplicate this, rotate 180 degrees on the Z axis, bring it in, bring it down. We're going to do it the same, however this time we're going to press 3 to select faces, Control plus multiple times. Let's Control minus a bit, delete faces, 2, Alt select this loop cut, press F. We're going to Control plus, bring this in on the X axis by pressing G, going to select this face, going to scale that in a bit, press E to extrude again, this time longer. Alt select this face loop and press E. Scale, Shift X. The direction might change for you depending on what rotation you have. It's I and I again to inset. And again E, right click, S. And Control B to bevel. Let's leave it as a single bevel. Now we have some ridge detail. Shade that smooth. Make sure that it's on auto smooth. You can add more detail if you want. However, again, for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to keep it shorter. Now I'm going to select the base mesh. Delete this, make sure that there's nothing funny going on, delete that face, unhide the other face. Now I'm going to inset this face, E to extrude that down, making sure that it doesn't intersect with any decor. Inset that, pressing I, scale that in a bit, that will be our blade light. Now let's hide the picture, hide it from render view. If you don't have it, you can press this and press the camera. Now let's select everything and shift select the base mesh, making sure that it's the active selected. Let's press Control P and parent. Let's rename this a lightsaber. Now we're going to make a background, lighting and texturing. Let's start by adding a black ring texture, Control plus. Let's go to the material properties tab. You can name this whatever you want. I'm going to make it a dark black. I'm going to assign it, add the plus button, Control I to select everything else. Make this the base, assign that to everything else. I'm going to give the roughness 0.23. Selecting the ignition, we're going to give this a black texture, make this black. However, we're going to leave the roughness alone. Making the base 2.3 roughness and making it a dark silvery. We're also going to bring the specular up to 1. Alt selecting that ring, giving it the black texture. Let's also give it to this. And let's give this a new light emission. Let's change that from principled BSDF to emission. This will light up in render mode. Let's give it a dark red and a strength of 500. Assign that. Let's give these knobs a different color. Let's give them a darker grey. Let's put the roughness to 0.23 again. Let's give this to the other knobs as well. And this one here. Now let's alt select this face loop. There, Control plus. And now give this the ring texture. Let's do the same with here. Let's give this a rubber material. Let's make it a dark black. Roughness to 1, specular to 0. Now let's select the other grips, and lastly select the rubber grip. Control L and link materials. Let's select the box by pressing L and assign it the ring texture. Let's give this the base texture. And that's pretty much all our texturing done. Now let's make our scene. We're going to select the base, going to rotate that on the X axis. Let's rotate that on the Z by 180. Making sure that it's the right way around. I quickly made a base. I just took a plane and extruded it. Let's bring the lightsaber down, but not too far down so as to intersect. Up a bit. There we go. Let's select the camera. Let's go into View, Navigation, and let's click on Walk Navigation. Pressing this, our mouse and WASD will control our camera movement. We can bring this into place wherever we want. Let's move the lightsaber. Now we're going to add a light area. We're going to bring that up, scale that on the X, scale it on the Y, bring it down a bit, scale it again on the X, bring it up. Now let's press 1 and Shift D, rotate it, do the same on the other side, Shift D, rotate. I made a quick back lighting, and let's also give this back of the base the ring texture, as I forgot to do so. Assigning that the texture. There we go. Let's also make an area light for the ignition, rotate that, scale it. Let's make it pretty small, bring it here, right inside, make it a bit smaller. I made it a nice red and power of 5. Bring it in a bit. There we go. Now we're going to go to Render Engine, Cycles, Experimental, and set the device to the GPU. Let's click on the Noising tab, press Render. That will get rid of the noise, the graininess. I am in 3.0, so I will have Cycles X, which will make it go much faster, the new version of Blender. The lightsaber is a bit bright, so let's move the lighting away, bring that out a bit, bring that light upwards, bring this light out. There we go. Here's our lightsaber. I did it pretty quickly, you can take more time on it. Let's bring the render sampling to 256 and bring it to 200%. This will give you 4K quality. Here's our lightsaber. I'm going to go into studio mode so that it doesn't lag. Render image, let that render. I'm going to scroll over a bit so I can see. This is your final image. You can also make different lightsabers. For example, Luke Skywalker Obi-Wan Kenobi, and even the Darksaber. To make a blade, all you have to do is add another cylinder to the middle. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please support me on Patreon and subscribe. See you on the next one. Bye.